Hello young saints and consecrated leaders, thank you for clicking on the video. This is your walkthrough for Sunday the 8th of October, where we will be finishing our Meet the Bible theme and we will be completing our timeline. Before I get into any details of that, don't forget that we have our parent partnership update information sheets for you that you can hand out, and it is really helpful if you can ask everybody to have a go at our parent feedback survey. We've been getting results or feedback, sorry, from this. Responses, that's the word I'm searching for. We've been getting responses from this, but we would love more. It's always helpful to us to hear your feedback from your parents in your congregation, in particular from congregations outside of Horsham, so Worthing, Crawley, Burgess Hill. We'd love to hear more how the parents there feel stuff is going on. We can't promise we can make any or all of the changes at all, but it's helpful for us to see how things are perceived and used and benefited from in other places as well. Now, today we're going to finish the timeline. Thing number one is I've got 9 markers to add to the timeline. First thing you need to know is it does not matter if you know what these events are on this timeline. It does not matter if your children will know the events that are going on this timeline. There is just one purpose for putting these items on the timeline, and that is to show that last week when we did Pentecost and the first week when we put you and me in 2023 on the timeline, that life has been going on between then. It was not true that there was like a silence here. The Bible is closed and then you and I appear and finally God starts speaking to his church again. No, that is not true. God has been at work this whole time. Events outside the Bible, yes, of course. But events, my life and your life, are outside the Bible too, and they're still important. God has looked over his church. He has faithfully preserved his church and his word, and he's looked over his people and his word for thousands of years. And well, for at least 2,000 years since the Bible's closed, right? And so we want to celebrate that. I am fully aware most adults in the congregation won't know what these items are that we're adding to the timeline. I'm not asking you to teach the items which we're adding to the timeline. I'm asking you to show the children God has been with his church throughout the ages. That's it. That's the only point. Having said that, let's have a little look at them. Some of them are a little on the macabre side. St. Alban here in the year 209. He's the first person in Britain to be killed for their Christian faith. Already some of you are going, wow, Dave, you dove in on the deep end with these. Yeah. The Emperor Constantine in the year 312 converts to Christianity as the Roman Emperor. Why is that important? A couple of reasons. One is the Romans were killing Christians, weren't they? That's exactly why St. Alban was killed. The Romans were killing Christians, and Constantine's conversion means that Christians basically stop getting killed at a rate of knots and start being people who are celebrated. Even the Roman Emperor was a Christian then at that point. The Council of Nicaea in 325. If you've ever said the creed, I believe in God the Father and I believe in Jesus Christ, his own one Son. That's first written at the Council of Nicaea in the year 325. There are churches still all over the world who every single week say the creed. When they say the creed, they're saying this document that was written 1700 years ago as a declaration of the Christian faith in a simple form. Brilliant. We've got it up on the wall in the room that I teach in. Here we go. Augustine of Canterbury in 604. He's the first Archbishop of Canterbury, so the first leader of the Church of England. year 604. You see how even the Archbishop of Canterbury is an ancient role. Now we skip a little bit forwards here to 1054 and we have the Great Schism. So you can see here orange and blue. The church in the world was just one church, basically, for 1,000 years after the life of Christ. And then the east side of the church, what we would now call the Orthodox, like the Greek Orthodox, the Russian Orthodox, the Serb or Coptic Orthodox, and the Western Church, or what we'd now call the Roman Catholic Church, split from one another. And that's why we have this in 1054, massive date. So again, on that theme of splitting, we then go to Martin Luther in 1517. He starts the Reformation. So Halloween, so the 31st of October, is also Reformation Day, the day when we remember Martin Luther starting. He nails his 95 thesis, his 95 questions that he has for the Catholic Church to the church door in Wittenberg, and this precipitates the Protestant Reformation. So here we have the Orthodox and the Catholics separating from each other. So then there are two churches in the world. When the Protestant Reformation comes along, you've then got hundreds of types of churches in the world. You can decide for yourself whether that's a good or a bad thing. 1611, we have the King James Bible written, so the old King James, or just as it was then, the King James, because it wasn't old. They thought it was new. Here we can say William Wilberforce, abolition of slavery because of his Christian faith, 1807, and everyone's favourite children's book author, C.S. Lewis, 1931. That's when he comes to faith. Now, I know these green things here are not, one, God's truth for his people today, I get it, but they are showing that he has not left his church for 1 second. He has been looking after his church the whole time. That's just a little bit of evidence for that. So that is part one of our talk, as it were. So whether you're doing children or youth, whether you're with young saints or with consecrate, part one of our talk is get these green markers up on the board and let's get this idea in our head that God has stayed faithful to his church throughout the ages, whether I know those events or not. I totally understand with the younger ones, you're going to want to go through that quite quickly. Then part two is, we've discussed the Old Testament and the New Testament, but what about this curious new creation marker that comes right at the very end of our timeline? We know what happens at the beginning of the timeline, what happens at the end. Well, today we're going to have a little bit of a look at that, and depending what age you're in class-wise, depends on how we're going to take that. So in Explorers and Baby Saints, we can say the Jesus Storybook Bible. We have a story here at the end called A Dream of Heaven, which is going through bits of Revelation. And in this much bigger Bible, which I think is a very lovely one, called the Biggest Story Bible Storybook. If you're in Adventurers, we're going to be using this, and it's called All Things New, and it's Revelation chapter 21 and 22. If you're with the youth, if you're with Consecrate, we are just going to be doing Revelation chapter 21 and 22, but just in the NLT. So in your New Living Translation, which you should have copies of in your congregations. And then, with the Consecrate guys, we've got some questions that you can ask off the back of having read your story. And we're going to add to it the fact that our memory verse today is John 3:16, and so that we're going to go through some of what is the good news, what is the gospel with the Consecrate guys. So that's what Consecrate guys are doing. In Young Saints, we're going to be talking about new creation. What does the new creation mean? So God making all things new, new heavens, new earth, that sort of thing. So yeah, your notes are here. Storybooks here and here. We have taken from this book and recreated one of the colouring sheets from there of a new heaven and a new earth. We have a memory verse maze. So can you get yourself through the maze and in doing so create or connect the memory verse to itself? So this is how God loved the world. He gave his one and only Son, so that whoever believes in him will not perish but have eternal life. Very nice. And you have the words that give eternal life as another colouring sheet for you. I know what you're going to tell me. You're going to tell me, Dave, there's an awful lot to pack in today. And I'm just going to sit here and nod and smile sweetly and agree with you. Yes, there is, isn't there? In terms of other things that we can do, we've got the song still, haven't we, of the books of the Bible? Gotta know the books. It's the books of the Bible. Get you guys singing that. We have the colouring sheets, we have the maze, we've got Bible book pegs, Bible smugglers, Bible book dice, a sword drill. I was doing the sword drill with my guys on Sunday morning and they really enjoyed it. And let's get these kids interacting with their Bible and learning to look things up and flick through the pages so they don't just think Bibles live on our phones like every other thing. Right? The Bibles can be a distinct, separate thing which we hold to be special, and therefore we actually use a paper Bible for it. So thank you so much for journeying with us on this timeline. I know it's a busy one today, but enjoy it. Double check your notes, read them slowly. If you have any questions, email children@kingdomfaith.com or youth@kingdomfaith.com. Happy to answer your questions. Have a fantastic week as we celebrate finishing off Meet the Bible. Next week we are starting a short week, a short theme that we're just doing for 2 weeks, prayer and worship. You can guess what we're going to be doing that. We're going to do some prayer and we're going to do some worship. So look forward to that. And I will speak to you again next week. Wherever you're serving, may God's grace and his peace be with you as you talk about the new life that's available in Jesus and the new creation which we can all look forward to. Have a brilliant week. All the best. Bye.